The Mels Hole Mystery, the Bottomless Pit of Washington State. It began quietly in February 1997, when late-night radio host Art Bell took a strange call from a man named Mel Waters. Mel claimed he owned property near Ellensburg, Washington, and that on it lay something that defied reason. A pit in the ground, perfectly circular, 9 feet wide, ringed by stones darker than any natural rock he'd seen. Locals had known about it for years, using it as a dump for old tools, trash, even dead animals. But Mel noticed something: no one else had. Nothing thrown inside ever made a sound when it fell. No echo, no impact, no splash, just endless silence swallowing everything whole. Curious, Mel decided to measure its depth, lowering a weighted fishing line deep into the void. 1,000 feet, 2,000, 3,000, still no sign of a bottom waiting below. When he finally stopped, over 15 miles of line had disappeared into the earth without resistance. The pit, he said, was bottomless, a dark throat devouring both gravity and reason. Neighbors dismissed it as fantasy, but Mel's calm tone made the impossible sound disturbingly ordinary. Dogs refused to go near it. They whimpered and clawed the dirt if forced within 10 yards. Birds avoided flying directly overhead, circling wide as if repelled by something unseen. Radios near the pit crackled with static and strange humming whenever anyone approached the rim. When Mel dropped ice inside, it returned warm and dry, unchanged except for the impossible. One neighbor buried his dead dog beside the hole. Days later, the animal was seen alive but distant, blank-eyed. Word spread fast through the radio audience. Was this America's own bottomless pit? Some thought it a secret mine shaft. Others whispered it was a doorway to another realm. The show replayed his interview for days, each time drawing more calls from listeners who believed every word. Then Mel called again, his voice quieter, trembling, claiming government officials had arrived at his land. They wore no identifiable badges, but they knew everything about him: his name, his property lines, his phone calls. They fenced off the land overnight, declaring it restricted for environmental safety. Mel was told to leave the state for his own protection and that he would be compensated. He later claimed his bank account was suddenly filled, though he never learned by whom. After that, all contact with him ceased. Art Bell tried calling back, but the number no longer existed. Satellite images of the area were later examined. The coordinates Mel had given appeared blurred and distorted. Amateur investigators drove the backroads of Kittitas County, but none could find the site. One witness said military helicopters patrolled the hills for weeks after Mel's last call. Another local swore he saw trucks hauling equipment out of the woods late at night. Whatever Mel's hole was, it had vanished or been buried deeper than anyone could reach. Years later, new voices claimed they too had seen the pit, though never in the same exact place twice. Some described a faint electromagnetic hum that made compasses spin and flashlights die. Others told of glowing fog that drifted upward, carrying the scent of metal and ozone. Scientists dismissed the story as folklore, but the details refused to fade. A few physicists calculated that a hole that deep would collapse under its own weight, yet Mels didn't see that impossibility, only fueled more obsession. Forums filled with theories and amateur maps. One theory suggested it was an experimental borehole from Cold War nuclear tests. Another said it was a geological vent connected to unknown volcanic systems beneath Washington. But then came stories stranger still of voices recorded at night, faint chanting from the earth. Campers claimed they heard whispers repeating their names in the dark fog above the fields. Local folklore blended with fear. Mel's Hole became a living myth for the Pacific Northwest. Children were warned not to wander too far into the hills lest they hear the hum of the pit. UFO hunters declared it an energy vortex linked to the same forces as the Bermuda Triangle. Paranormal groups arrived with EMF meters, their devices flickering and failing near certain clearings. Some said they saw light rise like a beam from the soil before vanishing into the night sky. One woman described her car radio suddenly tuning to the coast-to-coast recording unprompted. Skeptics argued it was coincidence, but she insisted she was miles from any signal source. Whatever it was, Mel's Hole had become an echo, a mystery repeating itself across generations. The story blurred between truth and fiction, fact and faith, until it lived only in the imagination. Yet even imagination has roots in something real. Every myth begins with a sound that can't be explained. Scientists from local universities quietly searched archives for any geological anomalies in the region. Old survey maps revealed faint notes of collapsed shaft sites never logged again after the 1950s. Declassified documents mentioned test wells drilled to extreme depths before being sealed. Could Mel's hole have been one of them, rediscovered and mistaken for the unknown? Or was it something deeper, a scar in the earth left by forces beyond technology or time? The U.S. Geological Survey denied all involvement, calling the legend fiction. But conspiracy researchers noticed strange payments to companies listed under geothermal exploration. Some believed Mel had stumbled upon a secret research zone, a site meant to stay forgotten. Others argued that such denials were proof of its authenticity. After all, why erase something that never existed? Meanwhile, in Ellensburg, people still reported flickering lights in the distant valleys every winter. Local hunters spoke of hearing an endless low hum carried by the wind from nowhere visible. Photographers claimed their film came out blank after shooting certain empty fields. Electronic devices glitched, drones crashed, and audio. Recordings captured frequencies beyond human hearing. The deeper anyone looked, the stranger the coincidences became and the quieter officials grew. Some theorists linked the phenomenon to magnetic anomalies under the Cascade Mountains. Others whispered it was a gateway not to hell, but to dimensions unseen, layered within our own. Stories told of people feeling weightless for seconds near supposed coordinates before blacking out. A few said they dreamed of falling endlessly, waking with dirt under their nails and static in their ears. Whether true or not, the myth had already taken on a life of its own, as immortal as the pit itself. Mel's hole had become an idea, and ideas cannot be buried. In 2012, hikers in Kittitas County filmed what looked like a circular depression glowing faintly blue. When they returned the next morning, the ground was solid, no trace of a hole remained. The footage went viral, reigniting global curiosity in the long-forgotten case. Scientists reviewed the clip. Some said it was lens flare, others a digital artifact. But the location, almost exactly where Mel once lived, gave chills to those who remembered. Podcasts, documentaries, and independent researchers revived the story for a new generation. Each version grew a little darker, a little stranger, as if the story itself were alive. Locals grew tired of visitors digging holes and trespassing on farmland chasing ghosts. Yet no one ever truly disproved the story. All they could say was, "We've never found it," which, for believers, was proof enough that something was still hiding under the soil. In recent years, infrared satellites have recorded unusual heat signatures deep beneath central Washington. Officials blamed geothermal vents, but the shapes looked eerily circular and artificial. Could Mel's hole still breathe far below where anyone dares to look? Or is the legend itself the real abyss feeding on curiosity, swallowing every skeptic whole? Every time a new witness emerges, the world listens again, drawn by the same static from 1997. That first recording, Mel's shaking voice saying, "There's no bottom." It just keeps going. Even now, replaying it in the dark sends a chill because something in it sounds too honest to fake. Maybe the hole isn't just in the ground, but in our understanding, a gap science hasn't yet filled. Maybe some mysteries exist to remind us how small we are beneath the skin of the world. And maybe Mel's hole was never meant to be solved, only heard, like a whisper from the earth itself. Today, when fog rolls over the Kittitas Hills, the locals close their windows and turn down the radio. The static sometimes returns, faint and rhythmic, echoing from nowhere anyone can find. They say if you listen long enough, the hum starts to sound like breathing, slow, patient, alive. And when it stops, silence feels heavier than sound, as if the land itself is waiting to speak again. Somewhere out there, under the soil of Washington state, the hole still listens back.